Hey folks, sitting in my car. Um, I don't know what much has really happened so far. I've gone through another week, not getting any real um, progress updates with any of the jobs I've applied for. Working on that, if I see something new, I obviously put an application in, and then hope to get contacted by a recruiter and start the process going. But I guess I wanted to address a couple things. So first off, I did have to remove a comment from one of my videos. There's like, oh, no FAP is placebo, I think was the general like gist of it. I don't know. I kind of, frankly speaking, don't care in some sense. I guess I didn't want that comment there for one reason or another. I mean, just I guess the general negativity of something like that, but also just the fact that I'm not doing this to get drawn into some sort of, frankly speaking, stupid debate with the anti-NoFap crowd. I mean, I know I put NoFap life, on my video titles. Maybe I should change that. But I guess, as far as that whole idea is concerned, if I were to address that, and I'm not really gonna, go into long drawn out whatever about it, but all I know is that when I'm basically doing no FAP and all the other things that come along with it, or go along with it, pun intended or not pun intended, I find that I'm in a far better mental state. I sleep better, I get more things done, and that's kind of like my concern with any sort of habit or process or so. Like, okay, what are the results? How does this affect me? How does this affect my life, my health, my sanity, my productivity, things of that nature. And it's kind of like, okay, if I were to go on sort of a fast from caffeine, like I would look at that and go, okay, how does this affect me? And if I were to go through enough that I got through caffeine withdrawals, and I'd compare and contrast myself between living without caffeine versus intaking caffeine, I wouldn't be I don't know if I'd be like really concerned about, oh, it's placebo or not, because honestly, like I'm not doing things for whatever people want to call superpowers or anything of that nature, because I know there are sort of extremists out there in all these different camps that will try and say, oh, this one trick is like the solution to everything, and you'll suddenly become some almost like a super saiyan or something like that if you do or not do this or that. But I would just compare and contrast the before and the after and say, okay, like, is this give me better results? It's kind of like there are all sorts of schools of thought within the whatever NoFap community or movement or whatever you want to call it, space, that NoFap space, where whether they want to go on some tangent about getting into this mystical woo-woo stuff, saying that doing this is going to give you some sort of special abilities, or they want to go on some moral crusade, or they want to say that it's doing this is like it makes you one kind of person versus another kind of person, or oh, what about all the the whammons in the prawn industry, or the effect it has on society, man, or all that kind of stuff, or the effect it has on men, man, or they'll get into that kind of lingo or diction, and it's like, I frankly speaking, like, don't care about that. For one thing, barring a certain percentage, I'm not sure what the exact numbers are, but most people involved in thus and such, industry, the prawn industry in this case, to a significant degree, they're involved voluntarily, and they're doing it for, in the case of the prawn industry, fast money, I don't know if you'd say easy money. I mean, easy compared to getting an engineering degree or, applying to 500 jobs and having to try and talk your way through, multiple interviews to try and convince someone to give you a chance to actually get into a position like that. Or, easy compared to becoming a doctor, or an attorney, or, successful attorney, or starting and running a clinical psychology or psychologist practice, or, easy compared to building a house or designing a house or doing construction work of any other kind, or easy compared to being a cop, or in some sense easy money, yeah, but maybe not easy in the long-term effect it has on your physical and mental health, and the outcome of your life and that sort of thing. But they're by and large, whether you consider it a good or bad decision or a stupid decision or something that's based off of short-term impulses but long-term negative, resulting in long-term negative consequences, or how it affects society or what have you. I mean, they are there voluntarily by and large, and you really can't consider them victims. So I don't want to get into that kind of thing, because I frankly speaking just don't care. I look at that and go, okay, are they victims or not? They're not, then okay, not my problem. I don't really care. Same thing with the superpowers idea. I don't think it's really superpowers. I never thought that. It's just returning to a state of normalcy where, like, people will talk about, oh, I can make eye contact now, or I can, I have, this aura around me with women or something like that. It's like, no, you're just acting, normal, or maybe better yet, healthy and functional, which comes off as an indication of having, I guess, more to offer, higher value, has your act together, not a weirdo, that sort of thing. Like, you're acting more healthy and functional, and that's why you're getting a different result, because maybe NoFap was the trick for you. Maybe that did sort of trigger or start off this process of you healing. Maybe it forced you to face up to certain traumas you went through, or just struggles you've had, and now you're overcoming those, or you're healing from that, and now you're making progress. It's not some mystical woo-woo magic type thing. It's just like, okay, you had this habit which took up so much of your time, or was a coping mechanism which prevented you from facing certain hurdles and overcoming them and growing as a person, or it contributed to you developing certain complexes or whatever, and now you're undoing that. It's not, maybe at first it seems like mystical or magical or something like that, but then once you get used to it, it just becomes sort of like second nature. Placebo effect, I don't know. Some things may be placebo effect, like you can kind of tell yourself that if I do a certain thing, I'll get a certain result, and you end up out of just belief in it causing that, which is what placebo effect essentially is, from what I understand. Like, you realize studies where people like get put on sugar pills versus an actual medication, and it's shown that, well, there's no real difference. Maybe there was, because the folks who were on sugar pills believed the medicine was working, or that sort of thing, and they were able to overcome like something which was actually more of a psychological phenomenon. But regardless of that, I kind of just, yeah, I really just don't care. It's sort of like, if you, and I'm not really here proselytizing or preaching or whatever, but if you were to read up on some stuff by, let's say, Aleister Crowley, whatever you feel about the guy as an individual, I'm not here to say the guy was a saint. He definitely wasn't. But I think one of the things that he said, which is kind of interesting, is, it's sort of like, it doesn't really matter whether or not these gods, or God, or deities, or, angels, jinn, demons, etc., really exist. Or whether or not the rituals really are, like, okay, are you really working with this kind of energy from, the element of earth or water or fire? It's more of a case of, like, you do certain things and certain other things follow from those things. You get results. And um, like success is thine proof, from the book of the law. It says that, like, okay, if you want to know the truth of a thing, look at what it doing that thing results, or an action. You want to know the truth of an action or a belief or so, like, look at its results, look at its effects. And if its effects, lead to certain or its effects are a certain nature, so you can kind of ascertain the truth of that thing from that, from its results, whether it's true, whether it's effective, whether it's good or not. And that's kind of like how I sort of approach this NoFap deal. I mean, I have questions about the actual long-term physical health effects of PMO, and of course in reverse of that, abstaining from that. How does that actually affect you in terms of like your cardiovascular health, muscular health, that sort of thing. And I don't know if those questions will really ever be answered, the very least in my lifetime. I think, society, Western society, in particular, but generally human societies, if they really wanted to approach it scientifically, they would have to have a significant enough, reason to go and, put the money, time, effort, into researching, doing studies and all that, getting, sample sets, of people to, abstain for a certain amount of time versus people not abstaining, and seeing how that works, what the effects are, if there are any. And I've heard of some studies where they've done some brain scans and such, but it's been very cursory. And again, I don't know if these questions will be answered. I have questions about the actual effects or the actual reality of it, but all I can really say, for one thing, it's not some magic pill, NoFap. It's not gonna solve every little itsy bitsy thing. It's kind of like the idea of, like, getting married. One day you're single, or you're, maybe you're engaged, and then you get married. It's like, it's sort of like, it's not a salve or a panacea for all your problems. It doesn't suddenly make you not a loser or an idiot, or suddenly this amazing, has it together kind of a person, whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't, suddenly change you overnight. Yeah, now you're married, now you're a husband or a wife, and maybe you've already got kids, or maybe you got some kids on the way, or maybe you will have a kid or two in the near future. But it doesn't suddenly make you this, amazing person. Maybe it gives you motivations to really, get your act together, get your life sorted out. Maybe having kids does that for some people, but the mere act of it doesn't, whether it's you're talking about getting married, or, kind of, dovetailed off of that into talking about having kids. I mean, maybe that sort of the motivation, and it's sort of the thing that causes you to look yourself in the mirror and go, I gotta sort myself out. And it gives you a reason, but in and of itself, it doesn't do that. Same thing with NoFap. Maybe NoFap is the catalyst for some people. Maybe for others, it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I think those are most of my thoughts on that. I do honestly get annoyed with the debates back and forth between folks who are pro or anti NoFap, the folks who are on the extremist ends, whether they're extremely in favor of it or extremely against it. It's similar with, you could say a lot of what they call, the red pill or the manosphere. Just how all these subcultures develop, and the fact that you got sort of the first, second, third generations, let's say, of people who get involved in that, or like the progenitors of it or the inheritors of it. And you have the folks who kind of, like, I think they get it in a sense, and they know that taking things to an extreme doesn't map to reality, and just because you understand these certain fundamental principles, whether it's, we're talking about the red pill, intersexual dynamics, or talking about NoFap, taking things to an extreme is not really the way to go, and that's not really what's being taught or said or communicated. And then you got the folks who, grift off of it. You got the folks who, take things, have a very crude understanding. It's you could be talking about, heck, you could be talking about religion. You could be talking about politics. You could be talking about economics. You could be talking about pretty much any very broad and very specific subject. You have the folks who have, it's like the different levels of understanding. You talk about politics, it's like most people, it's party A versus party B. And then, the other folks who, they dig a little bit deeper and they go, well, party A and party B have, 3 or 4, maybe 5 different factions, and then people who dig even deeper and go, okay, there's actually it's more of a spectrum. And you know what, in fact, it's not really about which party or which specific, candidate per se. It's more about like the folks who behind the scenes influence things because they can contribute massive amounts of money to different campaigns, or it's the folks who understand the laws well enough, let's say tax law, they know how to move their money around to different vehicles to create and preserve wealth and exercise influence, and they move among the right circles of society to be able to get things done in a certain way that benefits them. And that's not really what most people are at. Similar with like religion, you have the average everyday individual who claims in some affiliation with some religion, whether they're the kind of violent nut jobs who are threats to public safety, or they're just basic bare minimum, went through the sort of Sunday school crash course in the religion, went through their, whether it's their catechism or their, they took their, the 6 kalimas or 6 kalimas, of Islam, or catechism is termed from like, I think, my family's background, I think it was like, Lutheranism, or the sacraments, in Catholicism, or, whatever term, are the, was it like the taking refuge in the Tripitaka, the 3, baskets, the fundamental, precepts, I think it's what the 10 precepts or 8 precepts of, the different schools of thought in Buddhism, or, whatever it is, like, the very basic, bare minimum, knowledge or aspects, beliefs, practices of a given religion. You have those are most people, they're on the path to salvation, or at least, assuming that they take their religion seriously and are actually practicing it and, making that effort. That's their path. They're asking, okay, how can I be, how should I live my life here and now so that I have, the best result in the next life? And you got the folks who are further up sort of in levels of understanding, who end up on the path of sanctification. And it's these are the folks who they want to experience the reality of the truth of God, of heaven and hell, and so on, in the here and now, to know, and they end up becoming the saints of different religions. You can apply the similar metaphor to all these different subjects, and you can apply it just as much to NoFap and TRP and so many other subjects. And I think so much of the problem with getting into these topics is that you basically have those two very extreme and I don't want to say like low information, but you have those two very extreme camps who have a very crude understanding of the subject at hand, who want to debate back and forth, and whether they treat something like it's the one way, the only way, the truth, the light, and if you don't believe this, you don't follow this, you're whatever term they want to slur you with. or they're 100% against that, you know. I mean, you can find these very crude levels of understanding, whether it's, you know, in religion or anti-religion, in politics, and pretty much every, you know, subject, you know, not to repeat myself too many times, but I think that's what I experience when I, you know, really, like, I see these, you know, folks responding like that, or, you know, discussing things like that. It's very much that kind of, you know, angle or perspective or understanding or lack of understanding. And, you know, to be fair, you know, in some of these cases, I'd say I might have brought it upon myself at putting the term nofap in the video title, which, you know, a lot of these cases, particularly this last video, nofap was really not like the subject of the video. In all honesty, I was talking about so many other things, and I think that's kind of part of any sort of self-development path. You want to get to a point where you're so focused on new responsibilities, ideas, and so on that you know, the whatever you originally start off with which, you know, sort of gave birth to you going on this path, you know, is sort of in the background now. You know, like for right now, my main sources of anxiety, let me see, and concern have to do with the probate case for my grandma's estate, because I did call to set a meeting with the attorney for next week, and my spidey senses are giving me the impression that something might be up. I don't know if that's the case. I'm hoping that's not the case, because I basically have had to get everybody on my side in line with my plan, which is essentially just to make an offer based off of the value of the house at the time of my grandmother's death, which is actually less than what I've seen the house valued at this point in time, and have to sort of get certain people in my family who want to treat everything like it's either an academic exercise or it's some sort of attempt at, you know, getting vengeance for, you know, certain actions or so, which, whether the sentiment is justified or not, you know, would lead to basically everything being burned to the ground, so to speak. I'm, you know, being metaphorical here, meaning we would lose the house, lose everything, and I obviously don't want that to happen, which is why I've had to sort of take this path. But I am hoping that, you know, we talk to the attorney next Tuesday, everything goes according to plan, get this whole process started for, you know, getting like a probate loan and so on and so forth, so we can buy out the other heirs, and then that takes a huge weight off my shoulders and everybody's shoulders, and we can, you know, move on from that to other items, you know, their line items. That's probably my biggest source of anxiety. The next is this whole job search deal, because you know, I'm getting to a point where even if I'm able to, with savings and, you know, liquidated assets, you know, shoulder the you know, the burden of paying for a probate loan and that sort of deal, I'm gonna need a job. I've sort of coasted through as far as I can on savings and so on, to the point that I'm through most of the courses I need to take. You know, I get through this summer and I get to this fall, you know, I'll be applying for graduate school, you know, so that's already kind of like in motion and, you know, going where it needs to go as long as I keep up with things. But I need a job, and I need a job that, you know, pays me enough. I am deeply concerned about getting pigeonholed as a technician, which I think, I mean, I'm hopefully I'm not past that point. I think if I get into graduate school and get a master's, or I'm at least working towards it, I can use that to get into internships and that sort of deal. I can pivot out of there. But, you know, I have that sort of fear because I've been trying to get an engineering job, and And it seems like my time working as a technician has worked against me, but, you know, at the same time, like, I look back to 2019 and I think, like, you know, I didn't have the kinds of deep pockets that I would have needed to have in order to just wait there for 6 months to a year post-graduation to try and get in somewhere. And in reality, you know, by that time things were kind of already set because, you know, surprise, surprise, in a lot of these cases, you need to have an internship in undergrad in the company that you're going to first start working at, or at least a company that's related to it. You know, for reasons such as it's not what you know, but who you know. And an internship basically operates as sort of like a 2 to 3 month long interview. And just the idea of gaining relevant experience, because, you know, I may have learned a lot of things on the floor as a manufacturing technician, but that's not the perception that most recruiters and hiring managers have at these companies. They think that you're just some grunt who, you know, pushes buttons and pulls levers, and, you know, the only way out at that point is basically to, you know, brown nose your way out. And if you can't do that, you know, you're kind of in a bad spot. But either way, my plan would be within the next year or two to be out of being a technician, even if I gotta get a technician job. And I've set things up financially well enough that I'd be taking care of this loan and all that sort of stuff. But that's my next source of anxiety, because, you know, I'm kind of in limbo here. I've been waiting for a month to hear back from this one job interview I got, and waiting to hear back from these other recruiters who, you know, supposedly submitted my applications, and you know, haven't heard back from them. You know, I've called them, I've emailed them, I've done all that sort of stuff, and I haven't really heard anything. Next source of anxiety is these classes I'm taking, because it's like I gotta buckle down and get into a routine again with these courses, especially the physics class, because that's what I'm most, you know, worried about, because that will affect, you know, the long-term graduate school, you know, and other things, other possibilities, that sort of thing, particularly since it's a prereq for the circuits class I need to take this fall, which I already signed up for and paid for. Yeah, I gotta do that, but without getting so buried in my classes that I forget about the job search and I forget about the probate and all these things, because, you know, we stalled long enough with that. But yeah, I got a lot of uncertainties, you know, hanging in the air right now, and that's where my concerns are really at. You know, NoFap helps, because I'm, you know, not wasting time on that. I'm not wasting time on having to recover from a relapse or, you know, binge or what, you know, just the headspace I get put in. But it's not really like my focus per se right now. It's like a tool that helps, you know, increase, you know, my effectiveness, my focus, helps me maintain some sort of mental, emotional equilibrium, which is, you know, unsurprisingly very useful, very helpful. Because without that, I don't think I could really sit there and actually plan out my day or my, you know, week or my month, and, you know, have sort of a plan in mind. But yeah, so I think I'll finish up here. I'll head back in. I might grab something to drink, but I might actually just like go back to watching the lecture videos and writing down to-do lists and getting some questions done. But other than that, I think it's possible I might need to run over to like the local Walmart and get a day calendar thingamabobber so I can write down different dates for different things that are due or exams or so, because that's usually that's been a really effective thing for me to have done that. And I keep an awareness of how time is passing, and what things are coming up and what I need to do and handle on a daily basis. So anyways, I'm really hoping next week brings some good news. And yeah, so I'll see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.